Hey guys, welcome to our lecture today. It is on enzymes. It's our second one in this unit, as you can see right here. And today what we're going to be talking about and going into is basically a little bit more on energy and then what the structure of an enzyme actually looks like. Okay, so as you guys should know, all living things, right, we need energy in order to survive. Without eating food and without plants getting sunlight, we're actually not able to live, right? Plants get their energy from the sun. And if you take a quick look, actually over right here on the right, you can see that we have this plant, right? And what's going on is the sun is giving off this energy to the plant, which allows the plant to produce glucose and to grow. Without the sun, the plant would not be able to get any energy. Because remember, plants, unlike us, they don't eat food. We eat food to get energy, right? We can't just sunbathe and all of a sudden start making glucose. For us, it doesn't work that way. And once we begin learning about cells, you guys should understand that a lot better. What is really interesting, though, is that many chemical reactions actually require an input of what we're going to call activation energy. To start the chemical reaction, okay? The best example that I can think of to use for this is right here. When you put a bunch of logs in a fireplace, they don't just ignite themselves, right? There's no spontaneous combustion. They don't just all of a sudden turn on fire. What you need is you need a match, right? And a match is that really small piece of wood that you light on fire, right? And what that's able to do is take a small amount of energy in that match, and then it lights all of those logs on fire, creating a lot more energy, okay? This is what's needed when chemical reactions start up, okay? In the body, this works, right? We don't have these small matches lighting fires within us. That would be really bad. But what we do need is we need small amounts of energy for our enzymes to begin making these chemical reactions occur in our body. And then once again down here, it's just important to remember that some chemical reactions occur quickly, right? And others are slower, okay? And that's just the way it is. So it's really important to remember that enzymes are proteins. Remember, the first time we talked about them was in our macromolecule unit, where we were learning about proteins and how they can be affected by pH or by salinity or by temperature. But yes, enzymes are proteins. And remember, they're able to increase the rate of a chemical reaction. And if you guys remember, rate, put this in yellow, rate is how fast a reaction occurs. Okay, that's what the rate is. How fast is a reaction occurring? Okay, and the way that enzymes are actually able to increase this rate is that they reduce, okay, you guys know this means to lessen, right? They reduce the necessary activation energy. Okay, so because the activation energy is lower in a chemical reaction with an enzyme, they actually occur faster. Okay, because our body doesn't need to get molecules that provide energy over that fast and break so many bonds. The reactants which bind to an enzyme are called the substrates. Okay, substrates. And if you guys just look right over here, you'll see that we have substrates right there, okay? And the substrates, you guys can write here, the reactants. And you guys should remember from last lecture, right, that the reactants are what are going into a chemical reaction, and they're what reacts, right? Very, very straightforward. Okay. The substrate, right, these reactants, they bind to the enzyme at what's known as the active site. Okay, so we have right here, I'll outline it. Okay, this is what's known as the active site. And what I want you guys to notice is that the substrate in the active site they have the same shape. Right? You'll see that right here we have this little groove, right? And that binds the groove there. And here we have more of these straight sides, which binds perfectly there. And you might be wondering why that's the case. I hate when tall markers call. The substrate acts as the key to the enzyme. So think of it as a lock and key, okay? Where the enzyme is the lock. Okay? So you have the substrate, right? That is this key, right? And there's only one key to every lock. And that's something I really want you to think of, okay? It's only able to bind to one type of enzyme, and it's very specific. Again, there's only one key to every lock. And I think that's really important to remember. The substrate is very specific to one type of enzyme. And again, if you look way down here, you'll see how perfectly that substrate fits into the active site. Okay? So what happens is once the substrate binds to the active site of the enzyme, chemical reactions occur and the enzyme is able to convert the substrate to product. Okay? It's able to make it into product. And you can see that going on right here, okay? We have these substrates that bind to the enzyme, and that's actually going on right in there, okay? The substrate becomes converted into product, and then the product is released, okay? And so the steps that I want you guys to know is that the substrate binds to the enzyme at the active site. Okay, I'm going to change this back to green to help you guys out. Substrate binds to the enzyme at the active site, and then we have chemical reactions. You guys can abbreviate that, it's just chem. Okay, we have chemical reactions that are occurring in this enzyme substrate complex. And when I say it's the enzyme substrate complex, all I'm talking about is this right here, okay, where we have the enzyme and you have the substrate in the active site. It's the enzyme substrate complex, okay? And then finally, number 3, the substrate is altered and it's finally released as product. Okay? So, really simple lecture today. You guys learned about the substrate, you learned about the active site, you learned about activation energy that is needed to convert the reactant to the product. And remember, reactant is just another word for substrate. And so what I want you guys to do is define these words. And then you guys can